My name is Heather Alexandra, and today we're going to talk about one of my favorite settings in any game. This is Kamurocho from the Yakuza series. Specifically, we're going to look at it in Yakuza 0. Crafting a game world that players care about can be really difficult. We're able to jump from world to world when we play games very easily. We're used to rushing our way through digital spaces. We can leap from ancient ruins to racetracks to the far-flung future, all with the push of a button. Grounding a player in a space and making it feel real is something that takes a lot of effort. It demands a certain subtlety that a lot of games ignore. And while Yakuza 0 is definitely not the most subtle game, it's full of broken teeth and chopped off fingers and blazing karaoke tracks, it still manages to provide a very real and charming setting for the player to explore. The majority of the Yakuza games take place in Kamurocho, which is a fictional take on Tokyo's Kabukicho red light district. It's a setting caught between two modes. There's a glitzy nightlife full of packed streets and bustling nightclubs, and then a more subdued daytime. It's full of potential, and there's just as much danger around each corner as there is fortune. In terms of space, the Yakuza games often invite comparison to Yu Suzuki's Dreamcast classic Shenmue. Both of these games have a very clear focus on their locations. Protagonist Ryo Hazuki wanders around the streets of Dobuita the same way that Yakuza's Kiryu might. But Shenmue tries to achieve a sense of place by focusing on the space itself. It allows players to enter shops that have no real function. It allows them to walk through a house and open every drawer, and it does this mostly for the sake of verisimilitude itself. Yakuza tends to place the emphasis on people you encounter over the space itself, and we'll use some early game examples to show how Yakuza 0 initially achieves this. One technique that Yakuza 0 uses, and that the series as a whole uses, is to populate Kamurocho with potential threats. Anytime the player is walking through the streets, they risk running into hoodlums or other Yakuza that will attempt to fight them. There's two distinct benefits to this. The first is that it helps characterize Kamurocho. This is a dangerous and rough place. If you're not careful, you're gonna have to break a few noses. The other benefit is a little more abstract. The risk that's present while you're walking the streets, the fact that these threats exist when you're moving around, it encourages players to sort of avoid a lot of the danger and find hidden back alleys or side streets. And without these encounters, the player won't explore most of the city. Additionally, the city has a fair share of NPCs with very specific purposes. Many of the individuals that you see in the streets are just there to give the appearance of a bustling city district, but there are other characters who offer more function than early immersive games like Shenmue ever did. For instance, I completely forgot about this guy, but I stumbled upon the clown Bob Utsunomiya, who is a familiar face from the series. He can provide you with pre-order redemptions, and you can also get DLC content from him. I didn't seek him out, I kind of just stumbled upon him without planning it. In function, Bob is nothing more than a shopkeeper, but when you populate Kamurocho with characters that facilitate meaningful systemic interactions, Yakuza proves that you can provide characters who are not just memorable in their design, but also provides characters that have demonstrably positive or negative consequences for the player. For instance, a variation of the normal thugs that you find is called Mr. Shakedown, and Mr. Shakedown provides a tougher fight, and he can also take your money if you lose to him. This will send you on a massive quest throughout the district to get your cash back. In Utsunomiya, you have a character that can provide for you, that gives you distinct benefits. In Mr. Shakedown, you have a character that does the exact opposite. Yakuza 0 also alters space based upon the characters that Kiryu interacts with. The opening of the game has Kiryu and Nishikiyama casually saunter through the vibrant city streets. The slower movement conveys familiarity and comfort with the space, as well as with Nishiki himself. Entering into the karaoke establishment not only lets the player experience one of the game's best side activities from an early point in the game, but it also indicates that the place is familiar and safe. You head in here with Nishiki. It's a technique that the game actually uses much later in some other specific context, including a time when Kiryu and Nishiki go to Kiryu's house. In contrast, When the player is engaging in an extended action sequence, interior locations shift between well-detailed to something that's a little bit more strange and abstract. They feel like sprawling dungeons and far less real than the world outside. This juxtaposition between the comfortable and the hostile helps characterize the district as a whole. Not only does it express that duality that we talked about at the beginning, between that bright facade and the seedier underground qualities, but it also helps indicate which characters are familiar and which are distinctly hostile. You can sort of tell what turf Kiryu belongs in and where he can't go. All of this is in the early game, but it's a general technique that continues even as you shift to Majima's perspective in Sotenbori. An easy way to perceive this is to contrast the Grand Cabaret with pretty much any other location in Sotenbori. A sense of place suffuses the narrative as well. Much of the machinations in Kamurocho center upon a vacant lot of tremendous value to crime lords and realtors. Backroom politicking and extended conversations are given to just this tiny piece of land. It's a mere slice of the setting, and it's still rife with importance. Discussions about the development of this land feature looming shots of Kamurocho's nightlife. In many ways, the district itself becomes a character too, playing a central role in the plot and maintaining a heavy presence in cutscenes. Yakuza 0 makes great effort to try and provide a setting that really stands out. Various characters offer interactions with perceivable consequences. Interior locations shift to reflect the dynamics of given relationships. Continued navigation and renegotiation of the space helps breed player familiarity, and its importance is baked right into the narrative.